everybody. Good afternoon. Was that volume too high? I'm Bleu Cease. I'm the director here at Rochester Contemporary Art Center. My pleasure to welcome you all to today's discussion. We had a terrific opening last Friday. I think a bunch of you were here. It really felt like the before times. Lots of activity in the neighborhood, the place was packed, just a real return to some level of normalcy. So I know that felt really good to me. We haven't talked a whole lot about it, but the community certainly felt alive, and this exhibition felt really appropriate at that time. So I want to thank a bunch of you for coming out to see that exhibition. A couple little to see the opening, excuse me, a couple little bits of housekeeping. Coffee's at the front. I think most of you probably saw that, but thanks to Java's, help yourself, please. We have a real basic live stream on Zoom that we're doing. If you know someone who couldn't make it today, remind them of that. It's available linked from our website. And that means for all of us, as we're talking, I'm here, but also for questions later on toward the end of the session. Please try to speak up so that anyone on Zoom can hear. We're trying out some new tech here. And of course, we're here today to talk about our main gallery exhibition, State of the City, with Quajay, Emiliano, and Sue. But I want to remind you all of our other programs. Numinous Pools, here behind me, is a terrific video exhibition curated by a young curator from San Francisco. Featuring one local artist and artists from Toronto and artists from New York. And also in the lab space, a solo exhibition by Abiose Spriggs. And he's been meditating on this Paul Robeson film for many years. And this is really the largest body of work that he's presented, thinking about and contemplating this most interesting Paul Robeson legacy, but also very problematic aspects of the film. So check that out, please, before you go. And then I have a couple other announcements about our future programs. First of all, and I'm sure we'll mention this today, every Thursday from 12 to 2 and Fridays from 6 to 8, Sue will be here working in the gallery, adding to this monumental drawing. So please come back and see this piece in process through the run of the exhibition. That's Thursday, 12 to 2, Fridays, 6 to 8. And we have 3 other panel discussions coming up that I'm really proud of and really excited for. This time of year is always a time when we kind of consider our role in convening the art community here at ROCO. So we have a panel discussion next Saturday called Local Media and the Arts, Another Rochester is Possible. This is a very, very important topic of discussion for us in the art community, how our media represents the arts and how activist issues and art issues intertwine. On October 27th, The Spirit of Sankofa, Collaboration and Representation in the Arts, organized by Yaqub Shabazz. Many of you know Yaqub, not here today, but also certainly featured on this wall. So come back for that as well. And on November 2nd, an artist talk associated with our video exhibition, Numinous Pools. That discussion is on Zoom because the artists are all around the country. That's at 6:30. Lastly, artworks for our members exhibition, those of you who are artists. Artworks are due November 4 through 6. That's a rich annual tradition for us. And that exhibition will open in December, but artworks are due in really just 3 weeks. So keep that on your radar. Thank yous. I have a bunch of thank yous. I will limit them, but first, I really want to recognize our small but mighty team here at ROCO. There's Carrie and Reggie helping you all with your seats and running the Zoom. Katie and Jessica are at the front desk. Melissa is out of town today, but is very much involved with installing artworks. I just want to point out one thing. If you don't know, the small type on the walls around Quajay's photo essay, every single one of those letters apostrophes, question marks, and periods, with a little bit of vinyl press type stuff on the wall. And that was a major, major undertaking. And our team worked really, really hard to place every little bit of text on the wall. It was no small feat. So please join me in thanking our team here at ROCO. Of course, I want to thank you three artists and Adiose and Rachel and the other artists at exhibition for trusting ROCO with their work, with their vision, and you three for being here today to share more of your background and your ideas. Also want to recognize another community organization, Wall Therapy, without which Quajay's photo essay here and many other aspects of our art community just would not be the same. This exhibition kind of almost sits on top of a lot of the work Ian and Eric and a number of you who are involved with Wall Therapy have done over the years. So really changed the landscape, I think, in our public art community here. So I don't see Eric or Ian here, but many of you know them. Let's recognize and thank Wall Therapy. All of our programs here at ROCO are supported by the New York City Council on the Arts, Parish Foundation, Monroe County, Mary S. Mulligan Charitable Trust, and about 1,000 members for a small place. But we have individuals and families and donors who are giving some small or significant amount every year to help us be here, to help pay our G&E the inappropriate rates that they're charging right now. That's a whole other topic, but all that we do is enabled through our membership. So those of you who aren't yet a member of ROCO, please consider joining at whatever level you can and support all that we do here at ROCO. So today, for our discussion, we're going to hear from Quajay, Emiliano, and Sue about their works in the exhibition and a little bit more about their background and their creative practice in their own words. I've prepared just a couple softball questions to get the dialogue going, and we will certainly save time for some dialogue and questions from you all, and possibly questions from those who are on the live stream. But let's please hold your questions till the end. I promise you we will absolutely save time for that. And then after our discussion here, hang out, we'll pack up these chairs. There'll be plenty of time for us to get to know each other, get reacquainted, and talk more about the exhibition. So I want to lead off by inviting Quajay to tell us a bit more about your background and about the work in the exhibition, how you got started in photography and reportage. And like,
do I need the microphone? Can you hear me? I can. Okay. Microphones are always weird to me. I should be singing this song. My name is Quajay. I am a writer and photographer. Bleu graciously called me an artist. Sometimes I struggle with that title. I feel that I'm, the person who documents these moments. And so I'm originally from New Jersey, grew up in Connecticut, and I've been in Rochester for the last 15 years. A lot of folks have probably heard this story, heard me speak before, but it was supposed to be a 2-year stint. I came to Rochester, my girlfriend at the time, wife now, I had moved to, or was from here, and so I moved here to, just kind of start our relationship and our family together. Never really been great at math, and so at 15 and 2 just kind of added up, and here we are all these years later. So my background had always been into creative work. So whether it was writing or photography, I used to have a video camera. I mean, I love that kids now have these phones that they do all the other things with. But I had a video camera and I had to hook it up to a VCR, and it was a whole to do. But always been involved in creative work. When I was, it was 15 or 16, I started to work at a small newspaper back in Connecticut. And that kind of started this creative journey. And so some of the work that you see around the room really leans on that time that I spent at that newspaper, with photojournalism and storytelling and really capturing moments and wanting, just that curiosity to tell a story. And so, after we're done here, and if you haven't already, the stories that are around the room are told, first person, from the folks that are featured. And it's a very interesting connection that they have to these public spaces in Rochester. And I'm happy to be a part of that community and happy to be, able to tell their stories and, kind of tell it, from my, through my lens, if you will.
Emiliano, how'd you get started?
My name is Emiliano Diaz. Originally from Argentina, born there, moved here when I was about 3 with my mother. Moved to Canandaigua, did my high school there, went to college for 2 years, I would say, moved to Portland, Maine, then finally made my way back to Rochester when I was about 23, 24. Been here since. I've lived 2 different areas of downtown. I lived on State Street for about 3 years. And then I live now on Liberty Polway, which is right down the street, so I get to see all these buildings. That's why all my work is buildings. Always been fascinated with architecture. As a little kid, I feel like just something that I've always loved doing. I kind of like math. I don't love math, but I'm not very good at math, but some days I feel like I am. Let's see, when I started my career, I would say about 3-4 years ago, I think I was in New York City, walking from the subway. I saw all these buildings like I always do, but just something different about that night kind of made it. And I'm staring at these as colors rather than buildings. And then my other work is a lot more colorful than this, I would say. But it has like a lot to do with why I like architecture a lot. I like every edge. I like seeing every edge. I like seeing every window as an edge rather than just 1 window, 3 windows. Yeah, that's about all I got for myself for right now.
Hi, I'm Begy. I am a Rochester native, though in 2000, my husband took a job in Los Angeles, so we moved our 3 kids out to Los Angeles, and then another corporate move to Santa Fe, and then in 2008, when our youngest child went off to college, I went off to grad school in New York City, to visual arts in New York, and really fell in love with New York and found a way to stay. Actually, via another Rochesterian who graciously let me stay at her house, and I had a studio with 8 other artists in Brooklyn and commuted back and forth between Santa Fe and New York. Got my husband to move to New York, and then COVID hit. And so I came home to Rochester, a family-inspired move, a COVID-inspired move, and I'm thrilled to be back in Rochester. I was fortunate enough to find a studio upstairs shortly after coming back here and get integrated into the artistic community here. I went to undergrad in Colorado and majored in art via biology when I discovered that I was really paying attention to drawing all of the diagrams in the biology classes and not really paying attention to what all those parts did or the chemicals involved. So I have worked in a number of different mediums. I was a painter for a long time when my kids were young. Collage work, which collage work lended itself well to having little kids running around and putting their fingers in what you do. And welding. I'm also a stone carver, and I always seem to find my way back to drawing with pencil. It's something I really love to do. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's it.
You should hold that. So now I just want to invite you to start telling us a bit about the series you have on display here, how it came together, and And don't mention that I asked you to make 100.
Yeah, so this series, one of the things that I wanted to mention, is that I am not sometimes when I say I struggle with the word artist or photographer, because I'm not trained as, a photographer at all. This is, my work is basically self-taught. I had a really good mentor to this day, the John Murray, who was at that newspaper that I walked into that day and said, hey, I want to contribute. And he graciously allowed me to contribute. And 25, almost 30 years later, we're still friends, and he still inspires, and kind of his fingerprints are really all over my work, just because of the way he saw things and the way he kind of showed me how to frame, but never really trained in any capacity. If a photographer walks up to me and they start talking about settings, I get lost. And I'm like, what are we talking about? This is not the conversation. Because I'm really more interested in the story. I want to tell a story. So when you look at some of the pieces here, some of them are, very much your traditional portrait. Someone is looking right at me, or they're looking off into the distance, and I've kind of set them up. But there are a ton of moments here that are candid. The person was doing something else. We were having a conversation, and I just kept taking photographs as we were talking. Or they went off into a different area where they were looking at something. There's an image in that back corner of Ian up in the right. He's looking at the wall. That is very much a candid moment. He was walking away from me. We had just finished taking a formal photo, and it was like something about the light and something about his admiration towards this wall. So Ian is the founder of wall therapy, and which is something about this moment that he was having that I wanted to capture. At the moment right below the Paul family, they were trying to get Julian to look at the camera. So his dad starts to tickle him a little, and his mom laughs. And so these are the moments that I'm trying to capture. And so this series is called Tell Me More, because I just wanted to hear these stories. This is your favorite hero. Tell me more about that. This is, why did you come here? Why is this so important to you? And so those are the stories that you can see around the work, why people were connected to these pieces. And so 4 years ago, I started to really pay attention to the public art in our community, right? So there was so many walls, whether it's graffiti, street art, simple tags, elaborate murals. And I was just interested in those pieces. And so this series is kind of an evolution. I started, just taking photos for myself, how it made me feel. Then I started to take them from interesting perspectives. What does this mural look like in an entire neighborhood? What is, the people walking by or riding by or, doing, how are they interacting with it? And then I became more curious about, how do other people feel about these murals? Like I felt a certain way, and when I would share photographs on social media, people would respond and say, oh, I love this mural, or I was there when they painted it, or there is some connection that they had to it. That's interesting. I wonder how many people have those stories. So last year, through the Landmark Society in the city of Rochester, they have this collaborative program called Celebrate City Living. And they asked me to put together a series around public art. And so I said, I think people have already seen the murals just as a mural. There's no connection there. And so if we're telling people to celebrate city living and go out and enjoy these spaces, how about we tell the stories about why people are connected? So I went out and I told 15 stories. And then when Bleu reached out to me, I think it was the end of last year, beginning of this year, I was really interested in how those stories came together, and I wanted to tell more of those stories. And so Bleu said, hey, do you think you can tell 50 of them? I said, sure, because I never really say no. So all sometimes myself. I was like, hey, 50 seems like a lot. And then we had a second conversation. He said, how do you feel about 20? Oh yeah, 20, I could do 22. Yeah, but it was interesting. So some of these stories are carryovers from that original series, because there were some that I thought people needed to hear again. The story of Ian, the story of Eric here, both very actively involved in wall therapy, the Paul family, the Weston family around the corner. So these are stories that I wanted people to hear, have a larger audience. And then I went back out and asked other people, why are you connected to public art? importance. And, you know, I remember, I look at every one of these images, and I remember the conversation that we had in that moment, you know, just, it was something about it. And, you know, some of us spent, you know, maybe 30 minutes together. Others were an hour, you know, we just talked and I listened to their stories and, you know, captured some of those stories and captured them, just kind of being with the art. I think that's the beauty of public art in Rochester, you know, the way people interact with it. Everyone has a different story, you know, different, you know, something that impacted them in a different way. So that's what I wanted to tell in this series. And, you know, it's been a year in the making. But when I really think about it, it's been 5 years in the making as I started to hear some of those stories early on. The goal is to get to 50 at some point, but maybe as a book or something of that nature.
Can I ask you a quick follow-up on that?
Yeah.
I don't think I need the mic. You have another exhibition going on right now, it's sort of a parallel body of work. Can you describe that and maybe just, you know,
I didn't pay
talk
attention to this.
about how they go together, but they're discreet as well.
Yeah, so I have there's another exhibition at Fisher. So Fisher reached out to me graciously. I'm going to say it many times. I struggle with the word title artist because I'm just a guy often just with a camera. That's what I think of myself as, right? And so when people say, "Hey, what do you think of your work to, you know, put it in the galleries?" What are you talking about? These are photos that I sometimes share on the internet, and maybe they're published, or maybe one or two in my home. But the show at Fisher is called How I See It. And it's really how I see public art in Rochester. I love how Blue kind of makes it this parallel exhibition against each other or with each other, because this is really how the community sees public art, and the show at Fisher is how I see it. So from these, again, those very unique frames, I step back a block and a half and I take a photograph of a mural. People are like, "Oh, I don't really see the mural," and I'm like, "That's cool because there's a whole neighborhood around it. There's a whole community. It's living and breathing." And it's, you know, wow, I wish you would have taken it without the car in front of it. It's like, well, the car will be there because it's part of the neighborhood. It's not in a museum, right? And so I think the beauty of public art is that it's accessible to all, right? So you don't have to have a membership. You don't have to pay admission fee. You don't have to wait until it's open. It's always open. And I think in 2020, when things started to disrupt in our society, I leaned into public art even more because it was so accessible. So the show at Fisher is 30 images. They're basically, I would say it's a love letter to public art in Rochester, but also many of the artists. There are photographs of artists creating these pieces, right? And so someone said to me during the opening, "Wow, I wish I could see the full mural." I said, "Well, the beauty is you can. I'm just giving you a teaser here. This is what it looked like before he was done or she was done. Now go and find it. And then when you're there, go and find a coffee shop or find a nice restaurant, because those things are all in that community."
You want to tell us a bit about this specific body of work?
Yeah, so when Blue asked me if I wanted to do a series here, he saw my stuff at Fuego. I had a show in January this past year at Fuego, kind of a little different, wasn't specifically on Rochester, more kind of my own designs and all these things. But when he came to me, I said, yes, I would love to. I mean, I live on the Repole, so I'm staring at these things all the time. I don't have any curtains at the moment, so I do that on purpose. So when I started doing this series, I kind of wanted to make Rochester how I see it. I am a huge skateboarder, so when this pandemic started, we got a skate park downtown. I want to say 2020 it was built, right around when the pandemic started, and I started taking my walk right from Liberty Pole to East, which this whole series is supposed to be your eyes from Main Street. So that's kind of what I wanted to do, my Main Street point of view. Super simple. I mean, you can tell each building where it is, exactly where it is. I did do a map. That was a really cool idea by Blue too. Kind of my actual daily routine, which always comes in. A lot of these pieces are a lot like about perspective, angles, seeing each building, how I see it. Maybe it's from my house or it's from when I walk to Liberty Pole, the end of the street. That's kind of where I get my images. I do take my own images for each painting as reference, or not, you know, exactly the exact photo of the building. I do render these. But yeah, my use of color too. I love colors. I love the blues I use in this. The blues I kind of do because, you know, we live in Rochester. There's only a couple blue skies in the clouds. So let's just say when we get those, that's kind of when I go outside and take all my photos and things like that. I love architecture, as you can see. I think it influences me in what I kind of want to do next. I mean, I have really big ideas that I really want to start getting down soon. And I think this was the opening, kind of putting my foot in the door on exactly where I want to be and when I want to do it. Rochester holds a very huge part of like my life, I would say. I mean, I've been here for 7 years now, and I say that like it's like a small amount of time, but it's not. Like, you know, I've had all this time, and now it's time to show you guys exactly what I really want. Yeah.
Can you add anything more about skateboarding culture, architecture, and integration there, and also maybe mention the
Yeah, so Credico Skate Shop, I've been going there since I was a kid, like literally as a kid. I would go there, get my skateboard when my mom would give me money, that kind of deal. So I've been skating my whole life. I always say it kind of falls into this whole painting thing because I get up and try every day. I try something new every day. Same with painting. It all kind of ties in. The community here in skateboarding is huge now. I mean, the skate park really brought a lot of people from different towns, different cities, different everything. And like, you know, I've seen pro skaters here who are huge, who I see on Instagram all the time. And when you see them in the street, actually skateboarding in Rochester, for what reason, I have no idea. I mean, there are some really good spots here too, but I think the community in general is just really big, and how they support artists too. I know Crutco now, with me doing it more now, he kind of wants to start doing artist series. So that kind of, I love that. Yeah, it's that kind of falling and getting up again. Each painting I kind of do that. I kind of want to perfect it and make it better than the next one. So that's kind of my tie in skateboarding and how it's really helped me.
For those who don't know, can you just explain the board, the deck?
Yeah, so it's an 8.5 size skateboard, which is my favorite size. It is a portrait of the, what is it? I call it East Ledge because there's a ledge there. A ledge is a spot that we can skate. You can grind on it. I bet the actual building doesn't like that we do that. But it is a famous ledge. I've seen a lot of pro skateboarders who've had. There's a couple of different mentions of Rochester in a lot of different videos. Even this past year, Nike came here, like a weird Nike SB team. They were all here, hung out. They went to each spot that I skate every day, which is really cool, I think. Kind of see their own perspective on it as well, not just mine. But yeah, I think the skateboard
So Crutco made the deck. You're our own.
Yeah, so I finally own a skateboard. I say I'm not a professional skateboarder yet or amateur or anything like that, but I have a skateboard, so that's right. So I mean, let's be real.
Okay. So this piece is called Entanglement, and the paper, which is heavy 300-pound watercolor paper, is 33 feet long, and I intend to finish it over the course of the show. There's so many layers to this drawing. It started because I proposed doing a community drawing to blue, and originally entangling community members. I have a style of drawing where I use a lot of this twisting cloth thing happening that has its roots in a lot of different things. And we talked about it, and we had to narrow down the community, and we decided to do the creative community. The way that I am doing this is I started with, I think I started with 10 different people in the creative community. Obviously, there's Blue at the end. There's a few other people here that are in the drawing. I started with 2 people that I share a studio with, studio space upstairs, that we did some collaborative work, Clara and Annalisa, and then a few other people that I think are doing important things in the community. Amanda, she curated the last Finger Lakes show at MAG, and she's very involved in getting Black Arts United started. And I met her and just immediately admired her and looked her up, and was just so impressed with the work that she's doing in the community. And Yakub, he's also up there. That's 9th floor collective. He's right over here, and he he's instrumental in starting the 9th floor collective. This just great artist group downtown. And so anyway, what's happening here is that each of the first few people, they give me the name of the next person, because it's developing organically, where each person involved is giving me the name of another creative person in the community that they think has contributed a lot to the community, whose work they really admire. And so it's just developing, in this grassroots kind of way. And let's see. Oh, why did I want to do this? Besides the fact that I just want to draw constantly, day and night. You know, just the events, as Quajay said, the events in 2020, so much is disconnecting us. And the media just loves to talk about those disconnections, right? And there's a lot more connections that I think that needed to be given attention. And I wanted to celebrate it. I wanted to create more of those connections where possible. I have to say, it is such an honor to have all these people, and everyone's being fantastic. A lot of people are coming to me. It's great because it's getting pretty involved in it, and they're coming here. They tell me all about their creative work, and I record it while I'm photographing them. And then I listen to that recording while I'm drawing. And I'm just these people are fantastic. And it's just an honor to be able to present this slice, this little snapshot in time of the Rochester community to the community, and really celebrate that. I almost wonder if there's a way to use their stories in another way, because they're so interesting. You know, like you said, it's the story is a big part of this. I also I started doing that also to get people talking, because I didn't want everyone to just have a static pose. So I've got a lot of people up there with their mouths open, and they're about to say something, because I wanted a sense of a conversation happening. And it'll be interesting to see as these lines start to crisscross. A few people have been, suggested by, like the same person has been suggested by multiple people at times. It's really interesting to see those interconnections. This comprises all artistic disciplines. There's theater, writing, there's arts administrators, poets, musicians, visual artists, photographers. So, and of course, the community is deciding who's going in from this point forward.
Can I ask you to just describe, most basic level, your physical process?
Okay, so I have this process where I transfer imagery onto the page. So in this case, I'm copying the drawing. I take the photograph, I select the photograph, I Photoshop it to get it to where I want it. I put it on a light box and trace it. Each one takes, on average, a couple of hours. I'm trying to get it down a little bit. And then I take that drawing, flip it over, and I rub it onto the page. And I started using that process because it doesn't incise the paper. It doesn't make marks on the paper. That graphite just sits on the top. And in my other drawings, erasure is a big part of what I do. So it allows me to erase where I need to erase. And it kind of gives this like sort of soft, ghostly feel to the portraits. And then I start going in and entangling. I began using just this cloth that I had been, this kind of style that I had been using for a while. And now, as I get to know more about each artist, I'm using maybe their hair to entangle. So it's starting to change. Like the last one I did, I know that Quajay makes clothing and he has some tattoos on his neck. And so I started making the tangling lines coming from Rashad that are sort of echoing like the sewing machine, sew those, that one stitch, that stitch that goes like this, as well as kind of blending in with this tattoo a little bit. Rashad's buttons are going into Yakub and people's hair. So the whole process is, starting to evolve in terms of the entanglement.
Thank you. I'll pass that back down. So one of the themes that I was interested in exploring through your work is literally that notion of exploring our community, and I think in different ways you all are each doing that through your process. I wonder if you could each Quajay first speak to what you have learned about our community and our culture, and what you're hoping that visitors, readers, viewers will take away from this body work.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is everyone has a story, and I kind of thought about that going into it. And so, one of the things that I often would say to folks is like, oh yeah, public art matters. But these stories really echo those sentiments, right? They really reinforce some of those, that story. And one of the things that I try to do intentionally with this series, especially with the ones that are featured here, is I try to take you to a couple of different areas of Rochester, right? And so, I could have taken all of the photographs downtown, I could have taken them all in the South Wedge, I could have taken them all just along the Atlantic, but I wanted folks to bounce around a little bit. And I wanted them to see that there are other neighborhoods, right? And so Sue made that great point, how, we are often divided, whether it's just our points of view or politics, or something you see on TV, and you become separated in these ways. And public art has this, street art has this amazing ability to kind of pull folks back in, right? And so these walls connect us, but it also brings you to areas that maybe didn't know that you feel comfortable in, because there wasn't a reason for you to go into that space. And that's how the journey started for me. I picked up a camera. Again, it's been a number of years since I'd taken a photo when I started to take photographs of public art in 2018. But it started to take me to different areas. Oh, I didn't realize this was over here. I didn't realize this place was here. And so I started to bounce around a little bit. So that's what I tried to do here with these stories. And also, some of the stories that people told, you could say, oh, me too. I also felt that way, or I feel this way about, a particular wall, or a wall that maybe isn't this one, but I have a similar story that connects me to another space, right? And so I think what I wanted to do and tried to do was to take you on a journey around Rochester to show you that Rochester is more than downtown, or more than the Wedge, or more than High Falls, right? I wanted you to go and see that there are other places and other communities And there are people that, have a connection to those spaces. I think the interesting connection or combination of folks that are featured here, some are from Rochester, some aren't. So, there's that. There are, some folks that, they're not connected to art at all. They just drive by and they're admirer of it, or, reaffirm something in their lives. There's always some sort of connection. So the thing that I wanted to do here, but also push to do with the Fisher Show is these all include an address, right? And the Fisher Show as well. And so I want you to go to those places, right? And I want you to go and see those things because, you can, to become connected to some of that work. Typically when I share an image, I don't always say, hey, this is where you can go and find it. But I really wanted people to go and find those things. And for the show at Fisher was very intentional because it's on a college university campus. And I wanted those university students to leave campus, go and see Rochester, right? And the same for the folks that are visiting here. I wanted them to go out and I wanted them to go see some of these walls. And I'm happy that some of the walls that people chose. So Christina on a wall over on Avenue D. People don't go over to Avenue D, right? Like, why am I in this neighborhood? Why would I go there? But there is a beautiful trail, the El Camino, right? It connects you to different parts of from coming out of Irondequoit all the way down to downtown. There's some beautiful murals along the way, as well as some street art, right? So I want you to go and find that and then understand that there is a community around that space. Some people go into the public market but never go over on Pennsylvania Avenue. Oh wow, there's some amazing, beautiful murals and an amazing community over there. You should go and see those things. So really the encouragement is to push folks out of their comfort zone, but also to listen to the stories of their neighbors and people that call Rochester home.
So I would say that when I was doing these pieces, as I walked through Rochester, we talked about a east and west side kind of deal where I'm looking at Main Street, I want some buildings from the east side, I want some from the west side. And when I was doing this, I thought it would be, I don't know what the word is, but I guess I thought it'd be different. And I want to say, there's a lot of construction going on as well. I will say that. But in Rochester alone, like these buildings, I just see a beauty in them, and maybe a lot of people don't. Like there's a couple browns in my paintings that I've never used before, and like these browns and autumn colors that I've never really used, and it kind of made me realize like the beauty in those colors, in how Rochester kind of changes it, where there's like a nice gray building, and there's like this autumn colored burst, and then some blue. There's glass everywhere, like there's one painting in particular which was on the west side going towards where the hotel is near South Ave, which I did, and it was a completely reflected building, so there was just all buildings. So I tried to do this next to the building by the Hyatt as well, but I did these reflections of what the building to me looked like, and probably one of my favorite pieces that I've ever done. I've never thought that would be, or I guess I would say I thought it'd be a lot more difficult without acrylic and all that stuff, because I do use acrylics. I don't know if I said that earlier. But yeah, I just see this community as being so art driven here. I mean, like Quajay said, we were just talking before this about a little tiny tag that's in the bug jar that I love so much. And it's literally a marker tag, like this guy who does this. And I just think that's so cool. Like, and how like even that, like just like in the bug jar randomly in the bathroom, in that disgusting bathroom. It's very so cool. Like, how did he even get up there? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how I see my art too. Like, how did I see it? I want you to see that, obviously. And I just want to I think the community here is great for that. And they've been very nice to me in a sense of that too. Funny, we were talking about Ian as well in the photo over there. When I was 17, I worked at Rio Tomalan in Canada, and he used to bring the artists there, and they would have their dinner there, and I would serve them. And I always thought, I'm like, well, I'd like to sit at that table someday, And I think soon I will be able to, and that's something that, I've been working. I'm 31 years old now. I've been working at it for a long time, so I think my things are just getting better and better. That's something that I love, and I see the community getting better and better as well. I see a lot of people going out and actually doing art, like you said. It doesn't have to be, you can be nobody and go outside and do art, which is really cool, and I think he captures that very well. And I think that's what I'm trying to capture, I guess, in a sense of kind of looking at Rochester's beauty, even though there's construction everywhere and you might not be able to park it, but you know, you can still see the building and its colors and all that. So
I want to mention one thing that I haven't told you yet. Some of y'all know Range, it's not here. But when he came in to see the show, he said, damn, he's got away with brown.
yeah.
Well,
I'm very sorry for this. Just very, I don't know, I love this series very much. He was very flexible with it too. He let me kind of do my own thing. I was gonna make a couple of gray skies, but I didn't really want to because I know we do a lot of gray skies. That's another thing that I was thinking about too. But yeah, I love this community and I love that you guys are all here too. So thank you very much. Unless you have anything else.
Remember, I just asked you to speak about community culture.
And maybe what, I think what I hope that people get from this drawing is, there's a lot going on in this creative community. Get out there. Like, I guess in a way, it's a challenge too for those outside of the creative community, but who really enjoy it. I mean, obviously, I'm preaching to the choir here because you're all here, right? But there's so much going on here. I was away for 20 years and I would come back for visits. My family's all here. And sometimes I hear people say, oh, you know, kind of Rochester, there's nothing to do. And I got back here and I was like, there is so much going on here. The French Fest, it's world class. It's awesome. And one of the people I met whose picture's not up there yet, Doug Curry, is he's in a show in Blackfriars and he told me about it. And I just got tickets, so I'm excited to go. So I just hope that everybody just, you know, just gets back out there and sees what all of these different people do and enjoy that. This, you know, as they both said, this is a wonderful community and it's accessible. Like all of these things are, you know, they're not closed out to the average person for us all to go and enjoy and just to get to know one another. I deliberately, I mean, I can work in any style I want. And I mean, I've been doing art for a long time and I can make my skill do whatever I want it to do. And I deliberately wanted these portraits to be careful and time consuming and lovingly done, because I think that's what it takes to create relationships. It takes time, it takes showing up. It's a physical thing. And you know, so I guess that's what I hope. Let's just show up for each other. I know it's kind of sappy, but yeah, let's just get out there and have fun with each other.
So this last question, yeah, one more quick rapid fire with 3 artists, and then we'll open up for a few questions. I wanted to ask each of you to speak to your next project, what you're up to, what you're looking to work on next. What do you need to achieve that?
That's interesting. So I never intended to do 2 shows back to back, actually 3. There's a small contribution up the road here at the RIT City Space. And so I think my next project is to take that. Because I'm pretty be to, you know, put some photos together and put together a show, and then all of a sudden deadlines were looming, and he was like texting me, and I'm like, I don't have what he's asking for yet. Let me get out there and do some of this stuff. But I think really what I've been doing, so the last time I grabbed my camera, so I have the small camera with me today, but the last time I grabbed my bigger camera was August 18th. I think the last photo I took is of E over there with Eve and Steven. That's the last photo I took with that camera. And then I just put the camera away and really started to focus in on, making sure that the two shows had my full attention. And then probably 3 weeks ago, I picked up the small camera next to me and I started to shoot in black and white. So kind of resetting my mind. So you see a lot of color in this room. You see a lot of color at Fisher. And so it's kind of this reset of how, just resetting my mind after seeing all of this color. So I'm just working in black and white, and I don't know where that's going to take me. It takes me back to, those days at the newspaper, sitting in the dark room. Obviously, it's a lot easier now with the digital, but I think I'm just going to kind of hang out in that for a little bit and kind of see where black and white takes me. I really, it's sad when shows come down, so I want to figure out a way to make some of these pieces a little more permanent. And if that means putting it together in a book with some of the other stories, adding some stories. I mean, really, the short answer is I don't know. I don't know these things, but I'm open to the opportunities of whatever is to come. Because Emiliano mentioned age. And I'm 44. I never thought that I would be, in any exhibition or any show of any sort, right? I've taken photographs most of my life. And I never thought that this would be a thing, speaking in front of folks, doing public art tours, going to schools. That was never part of my plan at all. But some events happened in 2018, 2019 that really kind of set me on this, do more of what you love and spend time with those that you love and share more with the community. So I think really it's open to whatever, and not closing down any of those possibilities.
What am I gonna do next? I have a couple murals lined up. Other than that, I really want to expand my space. I'm looking to actually, I do everything out of my own apartment. I have a 1-bedroom, everything there, but I do live downtown, so it's kind of nice. But I do want a different space. I don't know. I might stay downtown. Just looking to expand a little bit. I'm doing a really fun mural in December. A friend of mine, Robert Loud, who has given me a few other projects too, but I'm doing a Kodak inspired B&B in Rochester, which is kind of fun. So I get to finally paint the Kodak building, which is another one that I've always wanted to do. Kind of just never made sense yet. I know there's like a million of them, I'm sure. So, but I think with this mural, it's going to be cool to see. I'm going to pull some nice color out of it. I really want to start building up a studio. I'm going to keep at it. I think I want to start doing some larger pieces as well. I've been staring at this and I'm just like, yes, I want to do something fun like that. Stuff like that. I think, yeah, that's all I got for right now.
What's next and what do you need, Sue?
Oh, wow. Choosing what's next is always tough. I have a sculpture. It's almost done. I'm hoping they have it done before the December 1st Friday upstairs. I'm just going to say, I can't tell you what it is. All I can say is you've got to see it yourself because you just do. But it involves a ruby and a alabaster, a raw ruby that I found in New York at this jewelry or this gem place in the gem district in New York. So I'm finishing that. I think I want to move into color, and I want to get some more 3-dimensionality, some more space in my pieces. I don't know what the subject matter I'm going to tackle next. I do love science fiction, so I don't know where to go from there. In terms of more community work, I recently did a residency at Writers and Books where I made a series of abstract alabaster sculptures out of people's stories. They provided the narrative, and then I made some sculptures surrounding that. And so I do like to do community projects. I would like to do a project here that I did in Santa Fe. It's called the Art Collision and Repair Shop. And my father owned a collision shop out on Route 104 in Ontario. I grew up behind that collision shop, works there. on Saturdays. Unfortunately, not welding, which I would have liked to have done. It was in the office because I was a girl. But we took the curator that we took that stalled work that all artists have in the back of their studio, and we created teams of artists who prepared it. And the works went on display at the Contemporary Art Center in Santa Fe, and it was a blast. And artists got to play together. And so I would love to do that here. And I'm starting to talk to a few people to see if I can make that happen. There's space and people and funding. I'm hoping maybe some car dealerships wouldn't mind donating, or people who don't normally donate to art projects. I don't know. But I would love to do that project.
Well, thank you all so much. I want to open up for a few questions, and maybe I can recite them or repeat them so that our friends on Zoom can hear. Yeah.
I'm sorry, is it Emilio?
Emiliano, yeah.
Emiliano, have you ever tried that, have you ever tried to paint that building with flat?
Yes, yes.
It's hard.
I tried, well, I haven't formally tried, but I've sketched it out. I've sketched out a bunch of like other buildings that I've always wanted to do, but like it kind of never seems like the right, or I haven't had the right time to do it, I should say.
Intriguing.
But yes, very. That one, there's a couple other ones that are right by State Street too that I love. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I still want to do in Rochester. I think that's what's cool about it too, is there's so many spots and things that I can do. And a lot of the times those buildings just give me inspiration to do a rendered version of my own painting too, which is always fun. But yeah, thank you.
Sue. I'm going to speak to on two things. One, collaborating with more on the specific fabric, and then number two, when I was looking at this assignment last week, we thought that was an umbilical cord. When we came up with this whole idea,
We take my repeat.
So he wants me to elaborate on the twisting forms that I use, and that a few of them were looking at it and they saw an umbilical cord in there. And to that I say, I love it when people find things in there that were unintended. That's awesome, yeah, because you know there are a lot of layers to things, and I can see that myself. Wasn't intended, but I love it. So I grew up, I went to Catholic school for 12 years and Catholic church a lot. And you know what? That was saints' robes, and and I just had a thing about the cloth and and Bernini sculptures. The Ecstasy of St. Teresa, love the expressions, but I love the cloth. Like the cloth speaks as much, I think, as the figures do. And I also I was a mom. I raised 3 kids, swaddling them and caring for them and wrapping them up in towels when they got out of the bathtub. And I think that the imagery comes from a number of different places. And maybe because I was a caretaker, that was my role. I've always been an artist, but I've also been a caretaker, and just that desire to like ease the world's pain or something. And this tangling kind of, it's this idea that we're all tangled up together and we're wrestling with how to live with each other. And then it started truly, and this is a weird story, but it started truly appearing in my work in grad school in New York. I was making these images with guns for some reason. I don't know. At first I felt a little over my head when I got there. I was like 20 years older than everyone else, and I had to get used to that and get used to being in New York, and I was a little scared, I think. So I just started using guns, and one professor said, well, you're going to be using guns. know what that, what is the behind the imagery. So I traipse off to Chinatown to a gun shop. I don't know what I thought I was gonna find at this gun shop, but there's this guy there and he's hanging out in the gun shop. The guy that owned the gun shop's like, I don't know, what do you want? I don't know. And then this guy just has, it turns out his sister's in grad school in an MFA program in London. He had a huge collection of guns. And he just wanted to get involved, whatever it was I was doing, and I didn't know what it was. So he comes to my studio at SBA with his gun, with a bunch of guns for me to photograph them. And my fellow graduate student says, "Oh my God, Sue, you are gonna be out. If you bring guns in the schools, he's about to show up. I am sweating bullets. Like, oh my God, get kicked out." She really she loves smoking pot. She works, so she knew what all the cameras and she's pointing them all out. Here, from there. So I'm like, oh my God. So we get there and I just took cloth and I covered them. It's the bottom of all the guns. Because I was photographing them to hide them from the cameras. And then when I started looking at the image, I was like, wow, I just love how the shape of this is showing through, and little parts of it was poking out. And so that's how this stuff working is born.
Well, before I ask my question, I think there's something to be said about the fact that people consider art to be subjective, or like in the way that people take photographs, people take paintings, and drawings, and sometimes people don't look at that as art, they look at it as things that you like to do. What I appreciated about all three of you is your sense of humility about how it wasn't always the intended path you wanted to do in your life, but look at us all here because of what you're doing right now. First of all, I want to thank you for doing that. And a lot of you kind of, some of you learn to do it, some of you maybe went to school to do it, but otherwise you're out here doing it. When you're not being commissioned to do some of these works, how do you stay, but number one, how do you stay grounded in the love of the craft first and foremost as you kind of move into doing commission works and showing it for other people? And secondly, how does that turn into more viable forms of art for the community here in Rochester?
It's a great question. So for me, the way, I love taking photographs, I love telling stories, right? And so when I don't feel that sense of love, like I would say, maybe this project isn't for me, or this thing isn't for me. But I think the way I stay grounded in the work is because this isn't my full-time work, right? So I'm not chasing, a commission or a project. It's just, I do it because I generally love public art. I love artists, I love, people, right? And so I think there's that connection that, just kind of keeps pulling me back in. But I often have had these opportunities presented just because someone will approach me and say, hey, I didn't know you were a writer. So I hadn't written in years. And in 2020, after the death of George Floyd and some other things, I wrote 2,000 words about how I felt about being a Black man in America and being a father and a husband and all those other things. People are like, oh, you can write. Here are some opportunities to write, but I'm often interested I don't want to write about that thing. I'm not passionate about it. It's not going to come out the way I want it to come out. The same thing when it comes to photographs. So when me and Blue had that conversation, he said, what are you working on? Not what do I want you to work on, right? And so I think there was that change. And, for Blue, I think when we got to the deadline or the fifth deadline, whatever one we were at. Yeah, immediate deadlines never. I need to know what the deadline is, so I know.
Welcome to my world.
What's the deadline, so I know how many days that's it. But when we got to the third or fourth deadline, Blue had only seen 3 images, right? And he just trusted that there was something at the end there, and I said, okay, look, I got the 20. And I gave him a file, and I was waiting for this, oh man, you gotta go back and do these again. And he opened them up and said, this is fantastic. And so, just not having that pressure to produce a thing for mass consumption, right? So if no one walked into this gallery and saw any of these things, it would mean the same to me as if people walked in, because it really was about how it felt on the inside. And that's how I want my work to be out there. And so no one sees it. If it's on Instagram, I get 2 likes. It's the same as getting 500 likes to me, because really it's how I felt when I produced or listened to that story.
I would say I'm still learning to do that. I was talking to them earlier about like how I still work. I also have another job to do. I work at Record Archive. I'm a big vinyl guy too. If that's something you guys want to know about. But it's kind of hard for me to turn off that switch kind of deal we were just talking about, and how like going from painting, like sometimes I'll paint all day and then I have to go to work and I'm like, I want to stay home. But also I think just staying grounded is always, for me, it's always making my next painting better than my last, no matter what it is, no matter how. That's kind of how I always am. Same with skateboarding, same with, I say life too, because you're always trying to be the better person, or the person that you want to be, I guess I would say. Blue did ask me to do the postcard for, so he asked me to draw Rocco, and I did that, and he asked me a month before my deadline, this was my first deadline that I've ever really had. Very, very tough, let me tell you that. But when he asked me to do this other piece, I was like, yeah, I got it. Like, let me do this and that. And I was like, yeah, let me do it. Took me 2 different tries to do that, on top of having one more painting to finish in the show. And I think there was like one day maybe I was mad at you, but other than that. And I personally, I mean, we ended up working it out. It worked. But let me tell you that November, or what was it, September 15th came up really fast.
And you were on vacation.
Yeah, I was on vacation. Yeah, that was my fault. I kind of did. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I'm in a good place in my life where I think I'm learning how to do all of these things maybe that other artists have done or achieved, because I still say I'm a learning artist, so still learning how to craft my craft the best way that I can too. And hoping that everyone sees it the way that I can too. I don't want to put just anything out there. That's kind of my own thing too, I guess I would say. I also don't do prints, so it's a big part of my artist career, I think. I mean, I don't, maybe someday the print is the skateboard. That's my first print I've ever done. Came out really cool. Still has the canvas on the board, which I love. That texture is just beautiful on it. Yeah, I think that's what I have for painting now.
What keeps you grounded?
What keeps me grounded? Well, I've been doing this for a long time, so I've gone through a lot of different ways of approaching art making. I think for most of us who are artists, we just can't help it. We just have to do it. And I'm making things because I want to see them exist in the world. I teach at Syracuse University right now. I'm doing that as I'm teaching. I have lots of tattoo artists. Most of us have to do something else because I do sell my work at times, but sometimes I want to take chances. So, and I want to leave myself open for being able to take chances and make what I think needs to be made at the time. So.
Let's just do one more question.
Maybe about how many times you said the word feel and felt, especially in your opening comments. And I just wanted to say that when I look at your work, it's very obvious to me how you feel about families. I think there's for the ones that reach me the most are really compelling to me. So when I'm looking at your work, I'm not looking at about the family and it looks the same feeling in me. I don't know, I was thinking about it. I saw 100 photos, I can photographers of families, I can think about yours very easily, and yeah, I love that you answered that question about Stu. And then Stu, also more comment, but you had mentioned that you like when people pick up your work, and just before the first Friday show, the Nobel Prize in Physics was announced, and it deals with quantum entanglement, and I was like, what a strange coincidence, all of them entanglement. I wasn't sure if you had, if you knew about that.
Yeah, actually, my graduate thesis, I like, words are not my first language, I can tell you that. So when I had to write a graduate paper, I just made it a bunch of stories that had to do with entanglement, and then I just entangled from all the papers. So when the professors had to read it, they had to like follow all these threads. And then I was hoping that they would ignore what I actually wrote. But yeah, I could not, intelligently converse on physics and entanglement and quantum theory, but I'm fascinated by it. So yeah, there is something to that. Cool.
And I realized, I'm sorry, someone else had a hand up back here. Oh, yeah.
So, what is inspiring you to do apply?
I think it's this reset of, it's kind of like you get your computer and you just want to reset, everything that's in there. It's black and white is where it started, right? Like, I think that's where I was in a dark room at 16, 17 years old. And it's just something about taking the color away from an image and making you imagine where that color was. And so I don't know, the black and white is just something that is different. But I also think for myself, and I've shared a couple of these black and white images with friends, I think in the last 3 to 4 years, people have become familiar with some of my work. Oh, there's a mural, there's a person, there's a thing. So being able to take a step back a little bit and photograph. There are some murals in some of my newest stuff, but then there's also there's a one-way sign, or here's just this corner, or a thing that kind of leans back into that street art. Before public art, like I mentioned, 16 years old, I was taking photographs. So there's photographs of business owners. There's a ton of photographs over the course of 3 years of going to concerts. I have, concert photography. There's tons of photographs in my body of work. I think what people become familiar with is the body that you see in front of you and that picture and some of the stuff on my social media. So some of it is, I could also take some other photographs. So I did 2 years ago, Danielle Ponder, I think we all know, love Danielle Ponder. And I took some photographs of her for a series called In This Moment. And it was portraits, it was these candid moments. And when people saw them, they were like, wait, who's a photographer? And I was like, it's me, I took those photos. And people were like, oh, I didn't realize you could do. It's like, well, I can do some other things too. This is just the thing that you may know me for right now.
I think we're going to end there. Please, everybody, let's hang out, but let's give one more